All right. Well, good evening, friends. Welcome to Foster Care and Adoption Night. We are so glad that you decided to join us tonight. We're so excited to see what God has for us tonight. It's going to be great. When we set up tonight's event, we had 3 goals, and I wanted to walk you through those as we get prepped for tonight. Our first goal was to bring professionals. You see the panel up here. To learn more about foster care and adoption needs here in the Valley and beyond. Raise awareness, kind of give us some information on what's going on so that we can decide how we might get involved, how we might help. Our second was we wanted to build networks with folks interested in foster care and adoption, so that's you guys. But what I've learned as we've been getting ready for this event is that there are so many people within our church here at Rock Harbor that are involved in foster care or are involved in adoption or have been, with just a wealth of information to share, amazing stories to tell. And so we wanted to give you a platform to do that. So welcome, we're happy to have you. Then there's a whole group of you who, like me and my wife, are wondering what the next step might be. We've thought about foster care and adoption, we've prayed about it, but maybe just not quite sure what that might look like. We have so many folks here who have taken that next step of faith, and so we wanted to build networks and get you guys connected. But our third goal is our most important goal, which is we want to welcome the Holy Spirit to speak into this. We know that this is a huge need, and we know that we serve a God who reveals himself as Father, and that foster care and adoption is just near and dear to the heart of God. And so we're really excited to welcome the Holy Spirit into this space to speak into the gap, that leap of faith that we need to take to enter into something like this. James 1:27 says, "Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world." And then Psalm 82:3 says this, "Give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute." So we see throughout the Bible, again and again and again, that God cares deeply for the fatherless, the orphan, the vulnerable among us. And we know that we look forward to a day when God will wipe away every tear. But in the in-between time, we know that we have 2 callings as the capital C Church and as Christians. The first is that we're to bear the image of God. So that means we're to abide in him, love him, serve him with all of our being. And then that second calling is we're to restore the image of God to the world around us. And so tonight we have that opportunity to see that there's a real need to restore the image of God to the brokenness around us. And as we hear about that need, we want to welcome the Holy Spirit into this space to speak to each and every one of us about how we might get involved. How we might get involved in God's redemptive story. So we're excited. We're so glad you're here. I'm going to open us in prayer, and then we'll get into it. Father, we thank you that you choose to reveal yourself to us as Father. We thank you that you meet us in tenderness, that you welcome us into your family as adopted sons and daughters through the blood of Jesus Christ. We thank you that you will restore all things. We thank you that everything that is sad and broken in our world will become untrue. We thank you that you care deeply for the fatherless and the orphan and the vulnerable. And we want to be your ambassadors in restoring your image to the brokenness around us. So speak to us tonight about what that might look like for each and every one of us as we enter into that space. And let us be faithful to the calling that you give us tonight. And we ask these things in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, a little rundown for how tonight's going to go. We have a panel of experts. We'll do introductions in a second. Experts, yeah. For the next hour or so, we're going to hear all about foster care and adoption needs throughout the Treasure Valley. After we're done with the panel, we're going to have a Q&A time. So as you're listening, as you're hearing, be thinking about any questions that you might have, and we'll give you a little window for that. And then once that is done, we are going to move to a time we're calling table talk, which is going to be you discussing things that maybe God put on your heart tonight with the rest of your table. Sound good? All right. My pleasure is to introduce Kate Wilson, who will be our first panel member to speak. Kate Wilson is our local partnership for the month of January that we're highlighting. She runs Foster and Heart. And so we're really happy to have Kate tonight. Kate is a foster mother turned adopted mother of 5. All right. And Foster and Heart exists to ignite the hearts of the community to foster care needs and what that next step might be if you're interested in becoming a foster parent. So we're really excited to have Kate. Let's give it up for her. Is that right?
I already messed up. First of all, Rock Harbor, you showed up. This is pretty awesome. I'm so excited that you guys are all here. And I just think it's awesome that you're all taking the first initial step to become a part of what's going on in the foster care world and the adoption world. So I assume some of you have had this in your heart for years. I was 6 years old when I first wanted to adopt, and about 15 when I decided I wanted to foster. And then some of you probably just convinced your husbands to come tonight, so you're actually like one step in the right direction, right? So I thought I would just share my story, because I am not an expert. I just have a personal story of what happened in my life. But I, like I said, have wanted to foster since I was about 15, and I was just waiting to get married. I thought, I had to be married to take that step. And about 2018, God put on my heart, he's like, it's time to do it right now. You can do it by yourself. And so I signed up January 1st of 2018 to foster one little girl. I thought, I can foster one, that's fine, right? And so in the process of that, I started my training, and they convinced me to take on 2. And I'm like, yeah, I can do 2. So I set up the rooms for 2. And in August of 2018, I got a call for a 2-year-old little girl. And I went to pick her up. And as I got there, she was unloading from the van with her caseworker. And she got out of the van with her 3 siblings. And there was 4 of them under the age of 3. And instantly my heart was like, oh my goodness, I'll take them all. There's this quote by David Platt, is that his name? I don't know if you guys know who he is. But he said, orphans or foster kids are easier to ignore until you know their names, till you see their faces, until you hear their stories. Because once you do, everything changes. And at that moment, I was like, I can do this. I can take all of them. But they happened to have been placed in different homes. And so we had to walk that course, and eventually, a few months later, I got a call asking if I would take 2 more of the siblings. And of course, I said yes. I'm like, I will take them. They had already been doing like weekend visits with me, so I had really good relationship with them. And so I ended up getting approved, and 2 more moved in. And then 2 months later, they selected me to adopt them. So it moved really quickly. I don't know if I'm terrifying some of you or really exciting some of you. I'm not sure. But it moved really quickly. So I ended up getting selected to adopt him, and their younger brother moved in with me. So that was like, let's see, I want to say like 6-7 months. And then surprise, mom had another baby. And so 3 weeks after my youngest boy moved in, he was about 16 months old, I got a 4-month-old. And so I went from a single lady living my life to a single mom of 5 in 9 months. But it has been the best and wildest and most amazing ride of my life. And at first, we worked the process of reunification, because as many of you know, or maybe you don't know, that when a child comes into foster care, the goal is always reunification and to get them back to their bio family. But my story had moved pretty quickly because they had been in foster care before. And so we moved really quickly. And in the process of that, the baby moved in 2020, I adopted all 5 of my children, and they legally became mine. And it's amazing. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life. I would continue to take on more kids. And I actually still do emergency foster care right now. So basically kids, you'll hear from McKenna, our safety assessor, when they're removed from a home, and it's, the late nights, they'll call me and I'll take those kids into my home. Usually they come with nothing. And it's the most beautiful thing to see my children, who are now 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3, love on these kids going through things that they've been through. And I just would encourage you, if you have kids in your home, foster care, a lot of people are scared, if you have kids in your home, to bring in foster kids, but it is beautiful to watch your children love on vulnerable children and children going through hard situations. So in the process of that, God dropped on my heart to start a nonprofit, and it really was birthed out of basically seeing my kids all split up into different homes, and they would see each other once a week, and that embrace when they'd run to each other at the visit, and just realizing that no kid should have to go through that. They're already removed from biological family, like everything they've known, their home, the home environment, the normal food they eat, and then you take their siblings away, and that is just a devastation. So I talked to my caseworker at the time, and she was like, don't do anything, because I came up with this idea while I was fostering. She's like, just don't do anything until you've adopted them. Just don't make any moves, don't change anything in your life, because you just want to keep it the same, And so once I adopted them, I quit my job and started Foster and Heart. And our goal is basically just to ignite the hearts of the community to foster and to meet the needs of foster children, and then to provide this emergency shelter for them. So the home we're working on opening, which, Lord pray, we're hoping it's open in 90 days, is basically a home that will take kids for up to 14 nights so that siblings don't get separated, so that kids aren't sleeping in offices or in hotels, and so that we can keep these siblings together, and then partner with health and welfare. They already do so much. They work tirelessly. I mean, it's amazing to me. Every caseworker I've worked with, they are working all hours, nonstop. They are giving their all to these kids. And so just trying to find basically a way to come alongside the government as the body of Christ, as Christians, as believers, to do what God has called us to do. And so that's where Foster and Heart was birthed from, that we just want to basically meet the needs and come alongside them and partner with them because they're already working so hard. So that's my story. I said that really fast, huh? Did I go fast? Okay. Do I pass it off? Okay, here we go.
Okay, I also talk fast. So, my name's McKenna. I am a child welfare safety assessor in Region 3, which is Nampa and Caldwell. So what that means is I'm kind of like first responder when it comes to the department. When we get reports, they get assigned to us, and then we go to homes, we go to schools, assess the child's safety. So that's my job. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of what that looks like, going into homes, the balance between that and like working with parents, and then share a story if I talk fast enough and don't run out of time. So when we go into homes, we're going for obviously a safety concern. And when concerns get assigned to us, they're assigned a priority level. So priority 1 is immediate, meaning the kid is currently unsafe, whatever situation is going on. A P2 is a priority 2, which means we have to see the kid within 48 hours. And then P3s, those are usually like our neglect cases. We have to see kids in 5 days. And so it really depends on like the age of the kid is what it gets assigned. So if you have a kid who's 1 with a black eye, that's going to be a priority 1. And if you have like a 10-year-old with that same injury, it's probably going to be a priority 2. So it just kind of depends on age of kid and circumstance and concern. So from there, we go into homes, we meet with families, kind of figure out what the situation is, what's going on. And it's really a balance of like, we're going in and we have some authority to say, we have a concern that you're unable to care for your child and we need to figure out what that is for. But at the same time, these families are welcoming us into our home. Most of the time, they're pretty cooperative. So understanding that they're allowing us in and answering our questions, and really just helping them understand our role, which is making sure that children are safe. So when we have to remove kids, it's really the worst part of the job. It's the hardest part of the job, and it's our least favorite part of the job. And I think that sometimes people hear child protection and they think that's all we do. But really, we try to get parents to a place where we don't have to remove their children, so maybe safety planning the kiddo out of the home while we work services with mom or dad or grandpa, whoever the caregiver is. That's always our first goal, but that doesn't always happen. It's not always an option. The story I want to share with you is a family with 7 kiddos, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, and 4 months old. This concern came in as a priority 3. It was neglect. It was concern for the 9-year-old not attending school and going to school in soiled diapers. And so we go to the home, and when we get reports, we have to see kids. We have to see every kid, because we've had cases where there's been 3 kids on the report and family only has 2. So for whatever reason, like, we have to account that all kids are there. So we're talking to mom. She doesn't want to let us in. Like, we have to see all your kids. Can you bring them to the door? She said they were sick, which I can respect space when people are sick. And she brings out this 4-month-old baby, and this baby is like translucent, pale. Her eyes are like bulging out of her head. She's so tiny. She's barely moving. So we knew that there was an issue. We weren't sure what the issue was, if it was medical. Mom had said she might have had like a bone development issue, but we needed to figure out what it was. So fast forward, we get her to some doctor's appointments. She doesn't have any medical issues. She doesn't have a bone deficiency. It turns out that mom was just relying on her 3-year-old to feed the baby. And so this baby wasn't gaining any weight. This baby, when she was released from the hospital, originally when she was born, she was 7 pounds. And at 4 months old, she was 5 pounds. So things like that is kind of what we walk into. So that's a severe neglect case. Other things we see physical abuse, we see substance use by caregivers, and any one of these things can result in the child being removed. It really just depends on the situation, and I was telling Kate earlier today that we can have 5 of the same report, for example, like substance use by a caregiver, and every single one of those is going to turn out different because parents respond differently, kids respond differently, ages of kids, family supports, things like that. So as far as the need of foster parents, like it's huge. I don't have specific data for you, but I can tell you that for the last probably year, we've been putting kids in hotel rooms, we've been renting Airbnbs. There's just not a lot of places for kids to go right now. And when we bring kids into care, our priority is to find family placement for them, but not everybody has that option. And that could be because they're not from here. It could be that their parents have estranged them. It could be all of the people they know are also using substances, like a number of reasons. So we currently have 2 Airbnbs full of kids. We have hotel rooms with kids in them. We had a group home, but it's no longer a group home, so I'm sure Kate's group home will be full as soon as she gets it up and running. And so that's kind of my role. I think that I love my job, and I love talking about my job. I love educating, and I'll answer your questions all day long. My least favorite part is removing children, 100%. So I think I covered everything I wanted to, but if you guys have questions, pondering, then I'm happy to answer them later.
Alrighty. Hi. My name's Monique Layton. I work with Fostering Idaho, so I'm glad I get to follow McKenna. So my role with Fostering Idaho is to reach out to the community about the need for foster families and to hopefully recruit people that want to step up and be that safe place for kids, just like McKenna was talking about, for that need. So I do have some stats. They aren't exactly up to date today, but these numbers seem to be within the same ballpark pretty consistently. In the state of Idaho, there's usually between 1,500 and 1,600 children that are in foster care at any given time. And then of that number, half of those kids are typically from Region 3 and 4. So that geographically, that goes over to the Oregon border where Region 3 begins and then extends out past Elmore County and then up as far north as McCall, and New Meadows in that area. So that's all Region 3 and 4. It's called the West Hub. So typically we have around 800 to 850 kids in care in the West Hub. So that is a tremendous amount of kids if you think about that. So what we do is we hold foster care information meetings on a monthly basis. Right now, those are being held through Zoom. So at my table over there, I have some flyers that have the QR code that link to our events calendar. Since those meetings are being held through Zoom, you're welcome to attend whatever meeting best fits your schedule. My counterpart, my job is called a recruitment coordinator. There's a recruitment coordinator in each of the regions in Idaho, and so all of us present the same information at those meetings. So you can join whichever one meet your needs. The next one that I'm going to hold is February 17th, and it's going to be a daytime round of that information meeting, but other ones are typically held in the evening. So to become a foster parent in Idaho, what you would do is fill out a foster care application. Those are held online, so they're quick to fill out. It takes about 15 minutes to fill out. You would list 3 personal references and your medical reference. And then everybody that's 18 or older that lives in your home needs to do a criminal background check and get fingerprinted. There's no cost involved to you for that foster care background check or the application. Once we have that, we invite you to take the foster parent training class. It's called Pride Training, and it consists of 9 3-hour classes. Right now, those are also being held through Zoom, so there's nothing good about COVID, but it did have us figure out new ways of doing our work, and so utilizing Zoom as a platform has been really handy so that people can participate in the training and the information meetings from the comfort of their own home and feel safe doing that. So once you've completed that training, one of the licensing workers will meet with you and they'll write a foster care home study. They'll talk to you about what ages of kids and maybe if there's specific needs that you feel really equipped in taking on, they'll write that up and talk to you about, how many kids would comfortably be brought into your home, what's your capacity, and they'll write that home study. And what we've seen is people that are getting licensed are getting kids placed with them pretty quickly because of that need, like McKenna talked about. There's just not a number of foster homes available at this time. The biggest need right now is for people who can take on kids that are 12 and up. But that's not to discourage anyone that wants to foster younger kids from applying. Everybody is needed. It's just that's that age group that they're very short current foster families for. So the other thing I want to let you know about is with Fostering Idaho, we have a program that's called the RPM program. It's Resource Peer Mentors. Kate is one of them. They're experienced foster parents that partner alongside people who are inquiring, and then they stay assigned to you through the licensing process, and then even when you have kids placed, to be a mentor support to you. So not every state has that, but it's really critical to provide that mentoring support to new foster families so that they don't have to recreate the wheel and try to connect themselves to resources and supports that are out there. So that's also available. Foster care covers kids that are brand new born babies clear up until the time they turn 18. And then beyond that, they have extended foster care. So if you have a heart for kids and you think that you could work reunification, I encourage you to apply and learn more about foster care. The goal really is to try to help families get things back on track to be able to take care of their kids in a safe, inappropriate way. And so it's neat when we get to come out and talk to faith communities because I know that people believe that people can change and that there's hope. And so cling to that as a foster parent. It's hard when you are seeing kids reunify, you're really attached and you want to keep them sometimes. But there's also that joy of having families that have been able to get things on track and see that family brought back together in a better place than where they were when child protection first became involved in them. So my name's Monique Layton. I have a table over there. If you want to jot down my number, I'm happy to give it to you. I can answer questions that you may have that come to your mind even after this meeting. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help.
Hello, my name is Shawn White, and I supervise the Idaho Wednesdays Child Program. The Wednesdays Child Program is a child-specific adoption recruitment program for kids in foster care. It's a national program, but run individually state by state. So I supervise that program for the state of Idaho, and we are sort of on the tail end of the work that McKenna and Monique do in enlisting foster families. Sometimes we know that, unfortunately, kids cannot go home. And sometimes we find youth in care who don't have a backup plan for that. So they may not have had a relative be able to step in and provide permanency for them. And for whatever reason, some of our youth cannot find their permanency with their existing foster family. So when the Department of Health and Welfare has a youth in need of permanency and there's no plan in place for that child, then they send a referral over to our program so that we can connect families who hope to adopt from foster care with that caseworker and see if we can make a match or a good fit between families and our youth waiting in care. We have what I would consider a tremendous amount of kids in our program right now in need of forever families. It's waxed and waned a bit over the last couple of years with kind of the intricacies of COVID, and I think people getting in a spot where they were sort of just hunkered down in their own family and trying not to rock the boat too much with anything. But this last 6 or 9 months, we've really seen a lot of referrals come our way for children who need a permanent adoptive home. So sometimes folks might go to one of Monique's info meetings, or they might look into foster care and decide for whatever reason that maybe fostering isn't for them. That maybe their goal is just to find a match in a we call them our waiting children here in Idaho that might be a good fit for them, and that their goal is to just kind of try to move towards an adoption as quickly as possible. So I would be a great contact for any of you that you think that might be what you have in mind for your family. There's a few important things I think that people should know about the kids that we serve. Probably the most frequent question I get asked is, where are the younger children? And it stands to reason. I think that people who are interested in foster care adoption think that the younger the child, probably the better the attachment might go, or the easier the process might go. So I definitely understand where folks are coming from with that question. And there's a pretty kind of simple answer to that. So like Monique and McKenna talked about, when children come into care, then their family is allotted a certain amount of time to work a case plan or a service plan to absolve the safety risks that brought them into care. At the same time, the department is looking always at relatives, or what we call fictive kin, so someone who has a close relationship with that child but may not be biologically related. They're looking for those people to be the backup plan to the child being able to reunify with parents. So normally with those younger kids, it seems that stands to reason they haven't had as many years to be exposed to the effects of trauma and to struggles in the home, and so they're generally a little bit easier to parent and usually find their permanency with those relatives if they can't reunify with their parents. And then thirdly to that is that if they can't reunify with their parents and there's no available relative or fictive kin for them, the department most often at that point asks the existing foster home if they're interested in the adoption of that child. And usually most of those folks who've been fostering younger children do want to move forward with that. So again, that's kind of the reason why you'll see mainly older children that we're recruiting for. Sometimes we'll have younger children as part of a sibling group. We see a lot of big sibling groups through our program. We had a sibling group of 6 kiddos summer before last who were split up into 3 children in one home and 3 in the other, and they were just doing incredibly well and thriving, but the goal was to get those kids together in one home, and unfortunately after that period of time, neither family could commit to permanency for all 6 kids together. So we got a referral for those kiddos, and I'm happy to say they were all adopted into one terrific family where all 6 of those kids were able to stay together. One other kind of important thing I think to know is that kids who've experienced trauma and kids in care in general are kind of younger than their chronological age. So it's just kind of important to know that even though some of our youth are 14, 15, 16 years old, clear up to their 18th birthday, those kids still, want a family, they want permanency. Let's see. Sorry, I lost track of where I was trying to keep track of notes there. A lot of the kids that we serve have a history of multiple foster care placements and a pretty significant trauma history, but they're just really great kids. They're just working on their struggles and working on their coping mechanisms. I think what I've learned from doing this for a while is that the communities tend to get a little bit nervous about teens, kind of like Monique was talking about, and I think that's why we need foster homes even for so many teens right now, is that people think that they're a little bit scary. And in the work that we do, I find that to just absolutely not be true. These are great kids who did really nothing to get themselves in the situation that they're in. Really, the people that were charged with caring for them, were unable to do that, and that's how they ended up where they were. So if you visited our website and you have interest in adoption from foster care, you'll see a submission form on there, an inquiry submission. You can fill that out and send that to us. Having a home study done is an important part of being considered for any of our waiting kids, and there's a different path to that adoption-only home study than the foster care home study that Monique was talking about. So we also hold monthly info meetings via Zoom, where we'll share a lot more details about that and can help guide you down the path of that home study if that's something that you're interested in. So, have a lot of information at the table and happy to answer any other questions as well.
Yeah. I'm going to swap with Keith and Christina. My wife is not here.
Okay.
Well, I'll just start with introducing myself. We're Keith and Christina, and we were asked to speak on international adoption. That's been a part of our story, so I'll just kind of share with you what we've learned along the way, and hopefully it's helpful to any of you that are interested in that. We have 7 children. We have 3 biological that were born first, and then we adopted 4. We adopted 2 in the traditional international adoption way, and then our 3rd one came to us locally as a refugee who we adopted into our family, and then we currently have 1 son in Ethiopia, and that process has just been put on hold. They closed international adoptions, and he aged out. So we adopted. Our daughter was 4, and our other son was 8, and 16 and 16 were the ages of our kids when they joined our family. I was first introduced to adoption as a child. It was always just in my heart. My youth pastor and his family, they adopted domestically, and it just really intrigued me, and I just was curious what that meant, and I thought that was amazing and so cool that they would bring in a child that needed a family that was in the foster care system, and it was an infant at the time. I was really close to their family, just watched the integration of that and what that meant for their family, and I just thought it was really amazing. So it was something that was always in my heart. I love children. I always felt like I had it in my heart to just show love to kids that didn't have that didn't have the consistency of family. We talked about it when we were dating. I had shared that with Keith and my heart for adoption, and he was totally on board with that as well. So that was something that we talked about early on in our dating years, even before marriage and before we decided to try to have kids biologically. We knew that was in our future. I just felt like it was the heart of God. It was close to the way Jesus spent his time was with the children, with the least of these, and it was just something that he really put in my heart. As we started the process, international adoption is not for the faint of heart. That's what we kept saying over and over, because it is long and overwhelming, and it was just a difficult journey. And we personally didn't know anybody that had adopted internationally. We started our process. We had 3 kids, and then our kids were we have twin boys. I think they were about 5 and 6 when we started our process. And we didn't know anybody, and so we kind of I just started doing all the research out there, just Googling everything, talking to people. We went to something similar to this tonight. It was just a seminar that was hosted in Boise. We were curious about international adoption. We were like, yeah, now's the time to start. The only thing we knew of was...
I'm going to get a mic just in case I have
he
to
likes
interrupt her
me.
and correct her because she took me to this event. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I did. I drug him, just like some of you here. We had only known of international adoptions through China, so we were like, that's what we're going to do. I failed to mention, we just had a heart for other cultures. It was something that we really thought we'd be missionaries one day. We've traveled a lot. We've seen impoverished communities, seen kids that are orphaned because of disease and just simple things. And so we just had a heart for that. We knew that was what God was calling our family to in that way. So we we said, yeah, let's do it. We're going to start the process. We're going to adopt from China. So we started filling out paperwork, and then we quickly realized that we were not old enough. You have to be 30. Both parents have to be 30 to adopt from there. So there were other countries we looked into, and all the doors just kind of kept closing until I had my Bible study ladies just praying. Like, I just felt like, we know we're supposed to do this. We felt frustrated. Like, where are we supposed to adopt from? This is in our heart. We want to do it. And one of my friends sent me an email. She's like, I have a friend that just started a really small agency, brand new, doing adoptions from Ethiopia. And we knew nothing about it. I was a little bit fearful. We went on, watched the video, and just instantly knew that was what was meant for our family.
She went on and watched the video, and then I came home, and she said, watch this video, and then I cried.
Yeah. When I came around the corner and he was crying, I was like, yes, that was confirmation from God. Like, okay,
so
we
don't
are
watch,
supposed to do this.
Men
That's a true
do not
story.
watch videos.
I put
or
the video on
TikToks.
and left the room. So we were like really fast with getting everything done because we just like applied, and it went pretty quickly. Both of our processes were actually about 2 years, which is really fast for international adoption. We just, the other thing that was in our heart was just to adopt older children, because we felt like it's a lot easier to place a baby. We just really wanted to adopt a child that was least likely to be adopted. And so we had our hearts open, our paperwork open to anywhere from like a baby up to 10 years old. And so that was, both of our processes. We went to Ethiopia, fell in love with Ethiopia, adopted our first daughter. We started all this about 13 or 14 years ago. Yemi's been home. It will be 12 years this summer that she's been home with us, and she'll be 16 this year. So, do you want to?
I was going to share a little bit. For some, as you're looking to, add to your family or continue in, providing a place. I'm hearing you guys talk about foster care, and I'm like, I don't know, honey. We have kids moving out. What are we going to do with those rooms? Just knowing just the heart of God is just, and by the way, this is like, I haven't met some of you, and I'm like emotional over here because this is really special for our church. This has been our heart from day one, and so this is awesome. But when we got pregnant, you just prepare, because in 9 months you're having a child. When you take a step towards adoption, even I see some of you coming in today going, okay, which table? Okay, foster care, adoption, I don't know. Am I signing up? No, you're not signing up. Are you sure I'm not signing up? There's all those emotions that it feels like a lot of choices. And that was one thing that was new to us, is to learn, like when you're doing a survey for foster care, you're doing a survey for adoption, yes, we're open to a sibling set. I mean, making decisions about different types of, medical backgrounds, and what would you be open to. It feels very, you have to process, you have to pray through. You feel like, well, we're saying we're not open to a sibling set, but the Lord could possibly, or what about an age? We want a child between 36 months and 38 months, exactly. It's a weird feeling to make decisions. When you're having a baby, it's like, we just have to prepare because the baby's coming. Just to know the Lord works in all of that. And what we've seen just with birth order and some of those dynamics that happen, we've kind of gotten a place, and this isn't to say it's for everyone, that the Lord is sovereign over all. And some of these decisions we think we're ruining our life, or did we make the wrong decision? What did we do with the birth order? And what did we do with this and this? God knew all of this. And when you're stepping into his heart, there's not much you can do to really, do we think we're that powerful we can mess up God's plan for the world? No, he's trying to shake us up so we can become more like him. So I'm done preaching, she's talking.
It is true, though, like going through that process. I remember that was what Keith did say when I would like stress out, like, oh my goodness, this, is this the right decision? And he's so old, and our second son, Natty, was on a waiting child list because he was older, and he was probably older than even his papers said. And so I just remember like saying yes, and then having all these fears, and Keith was like, we can't like make a bad decision. This is from God, and he is sovereign, and he's gonna cover all of that. And I think just having an open heart and really surrounding yourself with people to pray for you, pray with you in the process. We did. Our first two are our first 2 adoptions are our youngest 2 children. And our second 2 are our oldest. So we did adopt out of birth order. And we did lots of training and research, and everybody has opinions. And like, honestly, it's just been, I'm gonna get emotional. It's been amazing for our family. And like some of them said, just watching our other kids just love their brothers and sisters like they are their blood brothers and sisters. They love them the same, and just seeing what it's done for our family and allowing our kids to see the world so much bigger than themselves and bigger than our family has just been really the greatest gift of all of it. The culture and heritage, adopting internationally, keeping their culture and their heritage a part of who they are has been super important to us. And I want them to love Ethiopia. I want them to love their birth families, to love their birth country. We try to celebrate Ethiopian holidays and have Ethiopian food in our home. We've taken them back 2 to 3 times each. That's just been super important. And I think it's been healthy for them to really just still be proud of where they're from. And it's been healing and hopefully helped in their process of just dealing with the trauma that they've experienced. Also, we're really open. It's like, there's open adoptions here, and it's a little bit harder internationally, but we have contact with all of their birth families. Every time I go, and try to go multiple times a year, I see birth mothers, birth siblings, families, and just really try to keep that a part of who they are. It's really important to us, and I think it's just been great for our kids. I would say probably the most amazing part of international adoption for us and our family, I remember the first time when we met our daughter, Yemi, and just like at the orphanage. It was back when it was one trip. We went, we met her, we took her that day. That was the first time we ever talked to her. I mean, I can imagine she was like so scared. I would think she would be. She was almost 4 at the time. And she just came running to us like open arms, jumped out of her shoes, right into our arms like she'd been waiting for us, like we had been her mom and dad forever. And it was just that moment that I'm like, this is like the love of Jesus. This is how God loves us. So I think experiencing his love in that way has been the most amazing part of our adoption journey.
She jumped out of her pink Crocs.
She did.
Yeah, when Crocs were in style the first time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she literally jumped out. Don't worry, I videoed it because she got the first hug. And so it was really sweet.
I would say the hardest part, because that's the reality, and a lot of people have questions about that. It's not like all roses and amazing and all of that. I think the trauma, and we all have probably trauma in different ways, but they do come with some significant trauma sometimes. And each of our kids have different stories, but I think seeing the trauma that they've experienced and come out as they've aged and just experienced different things in life is hard. As a parent, you love your kids. You want to take on that pain for them. You wish you could trade them spots. I think that's been hard. Attachment bonding with older kids and even a little bit younger has been really great for the most part, but there's been trust issues that you're like, wait, you've been here for 10 years and we've met all your needs, but that's part of it. And I think educating ourselves and constantly learning and being willing to just to learn and get them help when needed. It's okay. Everybody needs some counseling and therapy, and I think that's been really, really good. I always say adoption is beautifully broken. There's so much beauty in it, yet it comes from brokenness. Families broken apart, sometimes not by choice, but circumstances out of their control. So it's just a beautifully broken process, and it's very healing and redemptive.
The last thing, you can clap because that's better than anything I'm going to say. Just the last thing is just being in unity together. And the hard part is there's different emotions that are brought in. For me, she would read different blogs, and she's learning and understanding, and then just the dynamic of being a husband. And so I know there's the joke, and it's a simple one. How many husbands were drugged to the adoption meeting, and how many husbands, there's a joke about it, but it's very real, and and sometimes it's the husband that is pushing things forward, and like we've watched Kate, she was the single mom, just grinding it out, and everybody's story is different. But I do want to say unity is important in the home, and being patient, waiting on the Lord. There will be testing that happens with adoption. With fostering, there's dynamics that are there also, especially as people, of faith, where you're praying about it. I look at what we've walked through with adoption, and without Christ, and even with the trauma and the things that we've been through, even with grief and things, without Christ, I don't know where we would be. And so when you're going into it, just really pray towards unity. And sometimes it may means one person slows down, or it just, conversations are good. And if you're a husband out there and you're feeling some tensions and pressure and you're wanting to provide and you're nervous about even being here tonight, that's okay. I was once you, and we've walked through lots of things together, but being connected in unity together is the most powerful thing that you have, and God will speak in unity through both. And so that's what, we obviously are praying for tonight, to maybe bring you to that next step of whatever it would look like. So.
This was set up for Keith and Chrisanna to hit a home run at the end, and now this is going to be terrible. I'm just kidding. I'm Chris, and this is my wife, Tracy. I'm the creative director here, which sounds like a made-up job, and it kind of is. And just kidding. But we are foster parents, and we are the furthest things from experts because we're pretty new to this, actually. We were just in Pride 8 months ago or something like that.
I think we did the first of our paperwork in March.
Yeah, so
we did our application last March.
Super fast. So we're going to tell a little bit of the story, and then my wife has a few. She's got some wisdom to drop on y'all. So we were dating, kind of that story. We had talked about it, I think, adoption and not specifically foster care. So we are foster parents. We're kind of in the middle right now, and I'll share that in a little bit. We have always kind of, that's something that'd be cool. I think we feel led to do that one day. Sure. And then that was that. We got married, and here we are. And so we have a 4-year-old currently, little Levi, and we actually were trying to grow our family and having some problems getting pregnant for a second time. And then in the midst of all of that, it's a blur, really. We went on a missions experience to Guatemala with Keith and Christina and the rest of the crew. And I remember a moment, I do, and I don't know if you remember it as much as I do, but I remember my wife when you go to a missions experience, which this is also a plug, do one of those. Amazing. Do it again if you have already done it. We have an orphanage down there in Guatemala, and we had play days and hanging out, and we're doing stuff and working and all the things that you do on a missions experience. And I remember Tracy just clung to this little baby. I have a picture. I took a picture, thankfully, and she was there with him all day. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And at the end of the night, what's going on? And then she looked at me kind of teary, which she does. She cries a lot. Yeah. Netflix, all that stuff. Anything, she'll cry. She said, I could love a baby that wasn't mine. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I go back to that moment where we can do that when we're dating. And then now we're in this situation where we can't get pregnant. And, I'm not saying that it's a transaction thing or whatever, but then we started having a real conversation. Should we think about adoption, foster care? I mean, we have it so evident in our church. So many people have inspired us in that way, and we just always knew that was something that we're going to do one day. So we fill out paperwork, and then we join a Pride class. Meet Kyle. What's up, bro? He's our buddy from Zoom classes. We were waving at each other in boxes. And fast forward, we get certified, we have a home study, and then all of a sudden we get called, we have a placement. I would say that our stance, and jump in at any point, it was that we would want to be foster parents, but specifically, I know in Idaho you can't necessarily say it, but we would love to adopt. Permanent would be amazing. And we did all the research and stuff. We did want to keep our birth order, and we felt a little guilty saying that, but we did. So it automatically puts us in the bracket of young kids, under 4. So we got a call, and it was hey, they're a little bit older than your kid. Would you even consider it? We went back and forth, agonizing week of prayer and everything. And we said no, which is such a hard thing to say. No, you can't take care of these kids. And then we later got another call for another set of half siblings, baby girl, and a 2-year-old boy. And we were yeah, this is it. This is the one. And funny enough, my wife was in Ohio. She's from Ohio. with our son. So I'm thinking, my wife and kid are gone for a week. I'm going to hang out with the boys. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to hang out. The state calls and says, hey, we can have them there tomorrow. Oh, sweet. And so it's literally me for the first week, putting a baby and a 2-year-old, just me and the dogs. That was super fun. And that was August? Maybe.
August 13th.
Wow, you know that. So it was August. And so we've had that short run of every sort of emotion in the world, just to straight up be honest. Like, we've hated it at some times. We've absolutely loved it. We love it overarchingly. I've said it's brought out the worst in us and the best in us. And it's been so hard. And we've had the whole process, just to finish our story. The 2-year-old boy came to find out there was a dad that was interested in taking his son back, east side of Idaho. So we worked reunification over I think we had him for almost 3 months, maybe? So the math here
He
works.
went home in November, so
Yeah.
November 3.
That he was hard. We had some trauma there, working with him. I mean, it's hard to blame a little guy like that. I mean, but it was hard. It was really hard, taxing on our family. And on the other side of it, we have baby girl. We still have her, and we're in the process of adopting her because there is no parents or rights in her world. So in the X amount of months we've had this, we've ran the gamut. It feels like, I'm sure, nothing compared to what the stories you guys could probably tell. But yeah, we're here just to be like, we're in it with you. And I know my wife's got a few things she wanted to share, but that's kind of us and our story. We're happy to answer any questions.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about like what my fears were before we started, because I think they're probably pretty similar to a lot of what your fears are. I'm so sorry. I'm 7 months pregnant. I am going to cry. He's right. I cry at everything. Yeah. So I'm just going to keep talking through it. So I feel like one of the things that, like, when we tell people we're foster parents, they think we like have it all together. And I just want to tell you right now, we are not those people who have it all together. My house isn't clean. I'm not caught up on laundry. I forgot I scheduled a grocery order today and walked out, and it's been sitting on my porch for who knows how long. I don't feel like that's what foster kids need. They don't need perfect parents. They need availability. They need people who are going to show up. Oh, I'm sorry. The 2-year-old we had he had a hard life. He really did. And when he came to our home, he needed hugged every 10 minutes. And I hugged that kid so many times. And that's what he needed. He didn't need me to have a chore chart. He didn't need me to have my laundry perfectly handled. He just needed hugs. He needed a safe place with 2 parents who were not abusing substances or him. Thank you. So my plug is, please don't let fear stop you. None of us are perfect. There are kids who could need your home. Your home could be the safe space they need. Another fear that I had, I'm just going to talk through it, was just how hard it would be to work reunification. And it really was. I mean, we had him for 3 months. And when he left, I cried for weeks. I mean, obviously that's not like unique to anything.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
But really, you guys, I mean, I cried in the shower. I cried at work. I cried at my birthday party. I cried. I grieved because I loved him. But that's how foster kids are in your home. You come in and you love them as hard as you can for as long as you can, and you hope that that season makes an impact in their life. And I feel really fortunate that we're getting to keep baby girl. She's going to be ours. She completes our family in a way we didn't know was possible. But I'm not sorry, even that we had her brother, that we grieved. Going back to his bio dad is good. We have caseworkers and the guardian ad litem, and we talk to people and we get updates, and it's best. Him going back was best. It's best for our family, it's best for his family, it's best for him, but it was really hard. And I think if you go through Pride, you'll see the training. They don't sugarcoat it. They tell you how hard it is, and it really, really is. But you can do it. It's not worth letting that fear stop you. Because, I mean, that's a kid who had 3 months of a safe space in our house. And I think that our family feels like that sacrifice is worth it. It was very hard on our son. It was hard on us. It was hard on our marriage. but it's worth it.
Yeah, since, I mean, we've even met with counselors and stuff like that and gotten some of that assistance, which I know the state also provides. It's pretty great, actually. And the one thing that stood out to me, and it's pretty elementary, we were actually just talking to some of our close friends who are exploring the idea in California. Yeah, I'm from California. I've been here a while, though. What was I going to say? Oh, the thing was, you can do something imperfectly and it still be good. That makes sense. And I don't know why I needed to hear that. I don't know why I needed to be reminded of that, because it's very simple, right? It's still going to be good, and you could have really bad moments in it. And because I just was riddled with guilt of the hard moments. Like, wow, we like ruined this kid's life more than it already was. And it's like, no, we didn't. Like, no, we're going to be okay. Our family's good. We're robbing our 4-year-old from our full attention. No, we're not. And what Kate was saying about watching your kid love another kid, like, man, it's the best. I'm like, I was talking to Jody, I think Sunday. I'm proud of my son for who I'm raising and who he's becoming, because he knows what sacrifice is. He knows what it means to step in the gap for someone. And I know, I look around, I know some stories where you guys have other kids that are going to be in those families, and like, don't let that stop you either. That was a big one for me, that I'm robbing something for my own kid, which, well, the funny thing about our now daughter is it's like she is our kid. There's no difference, and it's another picture of the gospel. It's amazing. And so, yeah, I think that's it.
I'll just close by telling you, it was really hard on our son to bring 2 extra kids in the home. I mean, he had our full attention for a long time, and I feel like the beauty of our story is that this past weekend, he was sitting in the rocking chair with a baby doll, and I asked him what he was doing, and he said, I'm a foster parent, and I'm rocking my baby. And I took a picture, but it just broke my heart. Like, he gets what we're doing. And I feel like that's a legacy that we want in our family. So.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me cry.
Bye, Kyle.
All right. Well, thank you so much to our panel. Can we give it up one more time for our Untitled panel? Okay, so now is the time where you guys get to interact. We're going to move into our Q&A. So any questions that you guys have, I'll let the panel decide who's best equipped to answer it. If you have a name, that'd be amazing. But let's hear from you guys.
Yeah, you have to use a mic, sorry.
My question's for McKenna. I just was wondering, when you were talking, how busy are you? How often are you called out on these kind of calls?
So to give you some perspective, so Twin Falls, they get about 5 cases a week, and Region 3 gets about 50 cases a week. So safety assessors, they usually get about 5 cases a week, and it can range from P1s, P2s, P3s, but we're constantly on the move, always going, and especially because of those time frames, we have to see kids within a certain amount of time. So it's really like we're working from the time we get in until late at night, and sometimes we have kids overnight, so we're always on the go.
Other questions?
Yes, so that's actually a really great question. So when kids are in foster care, they qualify for several things that are normally based on a family's household income. So things like the Idaho Child Care Program for daycare, is covered. So you would just want to pick a daycare that's ICCP certified, and then daycare is covered. And then if they're older kids, then you would talk to the case manager around what kind of supervision would maybe be needed after school. And sometimes there's Boys and Girls Club or after school programs that they get you connected to so that the child has supervision. But lots of foster parents work, and it's covered, the daycare is covered through ICCP. So you're not off the hook. Say one more thing too. Yeah. So another thing that I'll add on to that. So when you are a foster parent, there's resources and supports that are available to foster families. So it shouldn't impact your family tremendously from a financial standpoint. Kids are covered by the Medicaid program, so their medical, dental, vision, and therapy is covered through Medicaid. They also are covered for the breakfast and school lunch program, and so that helps too. And foster parents also receive a reimbursement each month that they have kids placed in their home, and it's based on how old they are and how many days of the month they're in your home. So you wouldn't want to quit your day job to become a foster parent, but it does cover just basic room and board so that it's not a financial detriment, you know, to your family to be able to help kids.
Also, the caseworkers can provide you vouchers, so that reimbursement can go toward like food for the month, although you can also qualify for its food stamps, food stamps when you have foster kids in your home, but vouchers can get like car seats or diapers and wipes or clothes or any big needs that kiddos need while they're with you.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. It is it 15? Is it 10 or 15? Sorry. I think it's 10. I think that there needs to be a 10-year age gap between the youngest of the parents and the age of the child. I do know that there's sometimes variances around that. So if you were looking at a sibling group and maybe you had that age gap with two of the siblings, but you were close to not meeting that gap with an older child, usually that alone is not a reason to be not considered if everything else, you know, looks positive and like it's a good match for those kids. So the department sometimes has what they call variances around some of those rules that don't always have to be quite so hard and fast if it's the right situation for that.
Yeah, we had a question about the school setup. So for instance, if you're fostering a kid that's school age, based on the timing, I'm guessing you want to keep them in their school normally. But if there ever comes a point where that can be decided by the foster parents, is that ever a thing? And if so, are Christian schools allowed?
Yeah, so we try our best to keep kids in their same school. They're already being removed from their home and possibly their siblings, so we really try to keep things as normal as we can for them. But like if we have a kiddo come into care and their family's in Nampa and they're going to a Nampa school and you guys live in Boise, then we might have to switch him or her schools to Boise. And it's a conversation with parents, biological parents as well, because they're still parents and our goal is to reunify. So it would be a conversation of, so here's the Christian school that our kid goes to. This is kind of what it looks like. Are you guys faith-based in any way? It's usually things like that, big decisions like that are open conversations with biological parents.
Any other questions?
So I just wanted to let folks know that I think when you think adoption, people tend to think that it's a really high cost endeavor for you. So I really forgot to mention that adoption from foster care in Idaho is not an expensive process. It generally, for the most part, it might cost you around $2,000 from start to finish. That's for the home study that you would need if you're not going to become a general foster home, if you just want to go the adoption-only route. And then for retaining an attorney to finalize your adoption. And then if you do use that home study to adopt an Idaho child from foster care, the department has a reimbursement program in place where they'll pay you back up to $2,000 of incurred costs that you've had to be out of pocket. So it's a pretty important thing for people to know. I think people think adoption, you think the cost of domestic infant adoption, where people are talking thousands and thousands of dollars. The department and no one involved ever wants financial reasons to be the reason why a child doesn't find a permanent loving family. So you could just know going into that they do everything they can to ease that burden. And then also when kids are adopted from foster care in Idaho, they get to retain that Medicaid until 18 or 19 if they're still finishing school. So even though you finalized an adoption, your adopted child will not lose their Medicaid, which is huge in the ability to continue those services and things in place for them that they need. And then there's also, like Monique talked about, the foster care reimbursement that comes monthly. These children that I recruit for are all considered special needs adoptions for one reason or another. And so they qualify usually for an adoption subsidy, which is an amount that continues after that adoption finalizes. And it's generally not a set amount, it's worked out between yourself and the child's permanency worker or the Department of Health and Welfare to decide what will help, sort of fill in those gaps for your family of bringing a potentially higher needs child into your home. So.
I was thinking about the finances of international adoption before she talked about that, because I think that's that can be super overwhelming, because it's, $30,000+ per adoption, depending on where you're adopting from. But I just want to encourage you to not let that intimidate you, because I know for us, we did 2 full international adoptions, separate adoptions, and God just really met all of our needs, and we were able to fundraise, and people are really generous. There's a lot of people that want to give to something, that want to help, that will come alongside you. And so I know, the Plimmers could attest to that too, because they're going through the process, and God just met all of our needs in that way. The other thing I was thinking, because we won't be at every table, but as far as where do you start for international adoption, you have to do a local home study. So A New Beginning is a great agency here. They didn't do our first one. We went through Idaho Youth Ranch, but they closed their program. So A New Beginning is somebody that you could reach out to if you want to start, inquire, do a home study. You have to find an international agency that there's, a lot online, or you could ask us or whatever, but that's kind of the first steps for international adoption.
I was just going to add, since I started fostering in 2018, I've had 8 placements in my home. And I originally signed up, like I said, to foster one little girl, and I thought 5 to 12 years old. And my first little girl was 6 years old, and she ended up reunifying with her mom. And then I ended up adopting 5, and then I fostered teens, and then I've had about 16 emergency kids in my home. All that to say, just let the Lord lead you and surprise you, because you might think you're going to do a certain age, and I think Keith talked about this, right? But just God has a plan for you. And there's also I've had reunification with biofamily. I've had reunification. Some kids went to their aunt in Idaho Falls. And then I've adopted. All of it's beautiful. And there is a purpose for you in their life for every situation. Maybe some of it's for a short time. Maybe some of it's forever. And, all of them I've kept in contact with. And so you just have this extended, beautiful families that, out there that, I wasn't expecting. So I think foster care, when you're functioning in the Holy Spirit and letting God lead you, it's beautiful how God works everything out. And it's just amazing that now I have all these extended family in Idaho Falls and all over the place, because when you allow God to use you in that way, it's amazing to see how he lets you impact all these kids.
I just like to talk. One thing, from a dynamic of your families, it might be different for some of you, where you have, parents, and your parents have opinions about things, be it adoption or foster care, or, we had this idea of what grandchildren would look like and what this would kind of be like, and we thought you would just have kids, and then all that. And then for people who've walked through infertility and all the dynamics and all the emotions that come along with that. When you think international adoption or you think foster to adopt, it does feel different. And, fortunately, maybe when we first adopted Yemi, there wasn't as much internet out there. And so, family are like, okay, this, if it's an older child, all the trauma, all the things, I read this article. Did you hear about this situation that took place in Russia? And what about, there's lots of places that people can go. And I think there's really great counsel out there that, there are people that they needed to slow down a little bit, and parents can bring some advice and some counsel around that. I just speak to that because some of you might be younger and you might have family that you're the fourth person in the family that's adopted. This is totally part of your family heritage and it's not a big deal. Or you've had a lot of people that have walked through foster to adopt or foster care or the welfare system or whatever. But just know, there really does, and I said it, but just to have unity in your home, to be praying about that, because people do have opinions, and they say things that they don't even mean, but they're trying to be helpful, and they're doing the best they can, but it's just different. And so I always say this, it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different, and that's okay, because different often, it can lead us to a place that we rely on God in a different way.
Any other questions? Okay. The panel is going to be lingering afterwards, so if you do have follow-up questions, they'll be around. We have a few booths set up here, so you can get more information there as well. But what we're going to do now is we're going to transition to a time of table talk. So each of our tables has a table lead. They're in hiding. We have spies everywhere. They're going to guide you through this card, this conversation starter. But now is where we want you to kind of wrestle with what you've heard tonight. We also want to give you an opportunity to share your story, because we know many of you have adopted or are foster parents or have something to add to the equation here. So we want to hear from you. So for the next 30 minutes or so, that's what we're going to do. We're going to transition to table talk.